The pristine elegance of nature. For thousands of years, it was in the heart of the natural realm where our northern ancestors sought the spiritual touch of the divine. It was in settings such as these where they would perform the rite of Blot, the ritual sacrifice to the gods. As we strive to reconnect with the spiritual path that was forged by our ancestors, in spite of myriad challenges, we can reconstruct this ancient tradition and celebrate our pantheon in a way that honors our ancestral ways. The clues are there, sprinkled throughout the sagas and lore, waiting to be found and explored.
So, what exactly is a blot? The blot is one of three segments of the overall Vesla, meaning a festival or feast. These take place on the holy days throughout the year, such as Ostra, Midsummer, Winter Nights, and Yule. First comes the lake, which are the games and festivities, a celebration of life. Then the raid, the processional leading up to the sacred rite of Blot. The lake is the time of life's enjoyment, when the folk gather to celebrate the season, to dance and sing, to play games and be merry. It represents our childhood, from the time of birth until we must venture out into the world and make a name for ourselves. Then the horn is blown and the raid must commence. The sacred procession is mentioned in several of our sources, where the folk carry the statue of the gods and goddesses to the place where the blot will be held. Here is the time of contemplation, of meditating on your path in life and where you are heading in the direction you have taken. The blot is the special time to commune with both the gods and the spirits of our ancestors. It is a very solemn rite, charged with spiritual energy, forging a sacred bond between gods and men. The ancient priesthood, called the Gothord, were those who led the blots. If this were a man, his title was Gothi. If a woman, Gidya. And it was their sacred duty to uphold the traditions of the blot, maintaining communion between the mortal worlds and the divine realms. Within the home, the head of the household would take on the role of the Gothord for their family.
Know you how to risk them. Know you how to read them. Know you how to stain them. Know you how to prove them. Know you how to pray. Know you how to offer. Know you how to send. Know you how to consume.
The words of Odin, spoken from the Havamal. Like a lot of our lore, contains several layers of meaning. Not only does it pertain to the various uses of the runes, the ideographical symbols of great power, but it also contains a basic outline on how to blot. Now, let's go step by step through the ritual of blot. First, there is the time of preparation, when the Gothord sets the stage for the events to come. Then we have the actual ritual of blot, which can be broken down into 9 parts. The Vigya, or dedication, the Helgya, which is the consecration, the Bidya, a prayer, the Blota itself, also called Afra, the offering, the Senda, or sending, the Signa, which is the blessing, the Kyosa, or choosing, the Soa, the consuming, followed by the Inda, the closing. But before delving into these parts, it is important to consider the setting of the blot. The best location for a blot is in a grove, much like this one. It is particularly important to find a place you feel to be sacred, and can be a solemn setting for the rite to be performed. This can be near an especially domineering tree, echoing the grandeur of the world tree Yggdrasil. a body of water mimicking the holy underworld fountains, on top of a mountain such as that upon which Valhalla rests, or wherever you believe you will most feel the power of the gods. Privacy also plays a major factor, for you will not want to be in a place where strangers can easily walk upon and interrupt the proceedings. For our ancestors, especially during harsh winter months, it was not always practical to have an outdoor ceremony, and such can be the case for us today. When nature was not the setting of the rite, the ancients would employ a temple, which for us is called a hof. If there isn't a heathen hof in your area, the transformation of your home into a sacred space centered around the stali or family altar can be appropriate. Once we have our location, it is time for us to begin preparing to speak with the gods and goddesses. These are some of the basic tools that you will need for a bloat. First and foremost, you will need statues of the gods and goddesses you will be praying to. These act as focal points for the rite and allow for a true feeling of divine presence as it is being conducted. There are many deities in our pantheon, so having a statue for every one of them is not always practical. What we do is concentrate our seasonal bloats on a god or goddess and their consort, allowing for a few deities to be crafted and utilized throughout the year. The statues are necessary for our connection with our gods when performing the bloat and should be central within your gathering. The first set of actual tools needed in conversing with these gods involves the handling of mead. To our ancestors, honey wine was very special and sacred. One of the important stories from the lore concerns Odin's quest for the mead of inspiration. The mead is a gift from the goddesses, dropped down from the heavens by their majestic steeds and originating from the fountains of the underworld. The three tools for the mead are the horn, the bloat bowl, and the lautane. The use of cattle horns, or urar horns, for drinking dates back to antiquity and was observed by the Roman historian Tacitus in his Germania. The bloat bowl is also used with the mead, as will be seen later on. The lautane is an evergreen sprig used for sprinkling the holy liquid. Remember that an integral part of obtaining a sprig is to show respect for the tree and ask permission before cutting it free. The mead, food, or personal item is to be used as the offering in the bloat. The mead is also used during the sumbel or soa. Sacrificial blades are used to portion out the offering, and thus may have had a cleaver shape to them. This blade can be used to scrape the runes as well. The ritual hammer, invoking Thor's mighty Mjolnir, is used for hallowing various items during the rite. The gander is a wand or staff, usually inscribed with runes, that is charged for special purposes. The need fire is to be contained within an implement that will facilitate carrying it about. The lot box, what we call the fjord, is designed to hold rune staves. This particular design is fashioned in the shape of the fjord rune. Then there is the rune staves themselves, which are chosen during the proceedings. Now that we have our materials, some preparation is needed beforehand. This is especially so for the mead. While various commercial meads are appearing on the market, it can be much cheaper and more special to brew your own. This process usually takes about a month to accomplish. And then there is the scraping of runes into the mead. In the Sigdrifamal, where the newly awakened Valkyrie is teaching the hero Sigurd about the runes, she states,
"All were erased that were inscribed, and mixed with the holy mead, and sent on distant ways. They are with the Aesir, they are with the Alfar, some with wise Vanner, some human beings have."
The runes are painted or inscribed onto a sacred object or piece of wood that connects to what you are praying for. Warriors would wrist or carve them on swords for victory in battle. Sailors would have them on oars for a safe voyage. Midwives would paint them on their hands as the guides for a child's safe passage into the world. Then you should determine which runes you will use for your particular rite. These can be individual runes connected to the charm, or it could be the spelling of a word that relates to it as well. The use of the word alu is significant, for it means spiritual ecstasy, and can thus be a catch-all for when you may have difficulty coming up with something. The runes within the word are significant as well. The A rune, As, or Ansos, is the gods and their spiritual wisdom, relating to Mimir's well as the origin of divine power. The L rune, Lugur, or Lagus, is the rune of the mead, or water, relating to the Vergelmor fountain, which is the mother of all waters. Then there is the U rune, or Uruz, the rune of strength, relating to Urd's well, which is also called Urdar Magan, Urd's strength. Certain woods have sacred connections to our lore, such as the oak being connected to Thor and his power. The ash is mighty Yggdrasil. The yew is a tree of death and transformation. The birch of childbirth and fertility. Once you have chosen your rune formula and have wristed them onto the object you selected, take the ceremonial blade and scrape the runes off into the mead. This returns the power of the runes into the mead, both of which originated in Mimir's holy well of inspiration. Of course, our preparation would not be complete without an understanding of the hammer sign ritual, which is an integral part of any Odinic sacred practice. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, is the principal symbol of consecration within our lore, and is used to consecrate everything from homesteads to funeral pyres to the wombs of brides. The hammer signing itself is mentioned in Snorri's Heimskringla as a counterpart to the Christian sign of the cross, which was obviously borrowed from our ancestral religion. We have reconstructed it for our use today in sanctifying the many implements and offerings within the bloat. To perform the hammer signing, you will need a ceremonial hammer, or you can use your fist when one is not available. The first station of the hammer sign is the forehead. Take the hammer, or your fist, and hold it up to your forehead, then say Odin. Use a strong, bold tone to your voice, and feel the power of the Asa god flowing through you as you perform these actions. Next, drag the hammer or fist down from your forehead to your solar plexus and say Balder. Follow this by dragging the hammer or fist to your left shoulder, then say Frey. Keep in mind that in many traditions, the name Frey is interchangeably used with Freya or Frigga, so any of these can be utilized as well. Finish the signing by moving the hammer or fist to the right shoulder and say Thor. I like to conclude the rite by touching the object to be consecrated with the hammer or fist and saying Vingthor's hammer Vigya, which means Hammer of Thor the Hollower consecrate. This allows us to declare the object holy in the name of our mightiest deity and his magnificent hammer. How you set up your altar, or stali, is an integral part of the rite. Remember that the stali, or if it is made of stone, the hurg, is the central point of the bloat, a model of Asgard here in our world, and as such it becomes the primary focus during the ceremony. Because of this, it is important that your altar be aesthetically pleasing and well ordered. A white cloth, typically made of linen, is traditional in covering your stali, while candles and torches provide a nice touch, increasing the element's presence while giving the sacred area more lighting. When setting up your stali, be creative, but also remember to keep it simple. It is very easy to reach a point where the altar becomes too crowded and disheveled. When you have everything in place and the folk are gathered, it is useful and necessary to set the mood. This is a holy rite, and the people should be in tune with and receptive to the spiritual energies in play. First, we often read a declaration to demonstrate to the gathered the purpose of the rite and why we have come together. A reader is chosen for this so that all can come into the bloat with an understanding of its intentions. Then a meditative focus is initiated with the Galder. What we do for this is set up a stone circle, which we have engraved runes onto. Then we use a different stave for each rite. Crafted out of metal here, we can and have also utilized some made of wood. The idea is to create a strong visual that will allow the gathered to easily focus on the rune as they chant it and begin their transition into this solemn time and space. Galder is a sacred chant, usually calling out the name of a rune stave, thought to be significant for the ritual at hand. Though variations within this practice will certainly occur, what we shall demonstrate is the most basic usage shared by many practitioners. We shall chant the rune 9 times, connecting it to the theme of the ceremony while bringing the gathered into a state of solemnity. The syllables of the names can be drawn out to create spiritual resonances that can assist in directing the mind to the plane of the divine. The Blot begins with the Vigya, a dedication to the gods. This initiates the process of setting aside a sacred space to perform the ceremony, here in reverence to the deities of our faith. Holding up the gander, the Gadi or Gidya sings the words to Asgard in the holy verse forms of Ljóðahattur, then shares with the gathered the chanting response using the Galdralag meter. How to develop these verses will be explained later. For now, it is important to note that all religious cultures throughout the world employ singing and hallowed verses in the performance of their rites. Ours is no exception. Here is an example.
From Asgard above to Jormungand below, in Midgard shall we gladly meet. High and low clans of the hallowed powers, this noble realm is now your home.
Whether born of Aesir,
Whether born of Aesir,
whether born of Vanir,
whether born of Manor,
born of Alvar or Min,
born of Alvar or Men,
or Ymir's Arm Edens,
or Ymir's Arm Edens.
This realm is now your home.
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 Next is the consecration, called Helga. The air is purified by a sacred fire. As is recounted numerous times in the sagas, the holy need fire is carried around the perimeter while chanting a hallowed formula. This formula is chanted 3 times as the Gadi or Gidya revolves around the stead 3 times in a clockwise fashion. 3 chants per revolution, 3 revolutions for a total of 9 chants. 9 is the holiest number in the Odinist or Asatru religion.
The fire that burns, the holy red flame, may it be a beacon to us. Bright Heimdall's child is born by Thjalfi, sanctify this honored stead.
O noble gods and loving goddesses,
O noble gods and loving goddesses,
now it is a light, now it is alive.
now is the light, now is alive.
pure in its brightness, pure against darkness.
Pure in its brightness, pure against darkness.
Once this is done, the area is now sanctified. The Bidya, our next segment, is the holy prayer to the gods and goddesses of the Blot. It is typically performed in what is called the stada, or stance, of the rune Elgar or Elhaz. This is done by standing erect with arms raised in the air in a Y formation, focusing your attention on the images of the deities before you. This is the time for all the gathered to connect with our beloved deities, to feel the spiritual bond that we forge within the sanctified sphere of the Rite.
Hail thunderous Thor, with hammer thrown, do storms strike the fields of the stead? Winter is coming as we prepare, protect us in plenty and peace. Hail Thor!
Hail Thor!
Hail Thor!
Hail Thor!
Hail Thor!
Hail Thor!
Hail Cirrus Sif, who sees beyond, and gold are the grains by her grace. Before our folk bestow your blessings, so we may prosper in peace. Hail Sif!
Hail Sif!
Hail Sif!
Hail Sif!
Hail Sif!
Hail Sif!
Now comes the time for the Ofra, the offering to the gods, the focal point of the Blot. For the different gods, and in conjunction with the different festivals, there are different types of offerings. Often in ancient times, the offerings consisted of animal sacrifices. However, supplications of mead and other types of food were sacrificed as well. In fact, it could be inferred from the Grimnismal, where it states, "But Odin, the weapon father, always lives on wine alone," that mead is a proper sacrifice to him. Other references in the lore may refer to offerings to other deities as well, usually in descriptions of the meals each god or goddess may consume. Whatever the offering, it is symbolically charged with the goodwill of the people. Then it is offered up, mead from the horn or the bowl, or food on an offering plate.
We offer these gifts as gifts to return, beheld from a cause beef roost. United in blood, we are kindred as one, accept us as friends from afar. Rimfaxes ferment,
Rimfaxes ferment,
flesh or fruit,
flesh or fruit,
or Freya's weeping,
or Freya's weeping,
all oblations,
all oblations,
all are preferred,
all are preferred,
all in reverent devotion.
all in reverent devotion.
Once the sacrifice has been offered, it then must be sent as part of the senda. There are various ways in which an offering can be sent to the gods. These ways are tied to the traditional four elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Archaeological finds in the bogs of Scandinavia attest to the submersion of offerings into water. They were also known to be buried or set ablaze. Sometimes they could be left hanging from a tree in the air. A lot of this can be determined by the spirit of the festival, the type of offering involved, or by the god or goddess being offered to.
The spark that shines in what we send wins its way through the heavens. Gain strength, great gods, from what we give, to perform your wondrous feats. The offering is meted.
The offering is made.
The offering is made.
The offering is made.
The offering is signed and sent.
The offering is signed and sent.
Offered before
Offered before
devoted folk,
the devoted folk,
to those who watch our worlds.
to those who watch our worlds.
Once the sacrifice has been offered and sent, to follow in the Germanic spirit of a gift for a gift, comes the signa, which is the blessing. The Gadi or Gidya takes the bowl and lautane and proceeds around the group. The lautane is dipped into the bowl and then sprinkled on each person. The bowl has collected the wellspring of blessings of the gods, which is then, in turn, bestowed upon the folk.
Hail the gods, hail goddesses, praise be to you for the blessing. Blow throughout the limbs of Yggdrasil, all the order hear our call.
For the gifts given,
For the gifts given,
we give solemn thanks.
we give solemn thanks.
We give solemn thanks
We give solemn thanks
for all that we are.
for all that we are.
You are the light
You are the light
that leads us in life.
that leads us in life.
Next is Kyosa, the choosing. One of the many uses of the runes is for divination, messages from the gods. One way to do this for a bloat is to use a lot box.
By Odin's right we read the runes and seek their secret lore. We gaze into the glorious wells, for wisdom we will obtain.
The runes are reddened.
The runes are red.
The runes are red.
The runes are red.
Within the wells,
Within the wells,
within the waters,
within the waters,
we see our spirits,
we see our spirits,
we see ourselves.
we see ourselves.
Each person comes up and takes a stave from the box. Whatever stave they choose, or which chose them, is their rune for contemplation for the season. The mysteries and ideas contained in the rune can then help guide them in the coming days. Now comes the Soa, the consuming. This is best done through the performance of sumbel, the special kind of drinking ritual dating back to ancient times. It is from the sumbel where the tradition of the toast comes from. But sumbel is more than a drinking ritual. It is a connection to folk. It is through the sumbel that we relate to our ancestors, our people, and our gods and goddesses, by hailing them with a sacred mead. 3 rounds, or horns, are made with the drinking horn, each signifying in turn the past, present, and future. Although many like to utilize variants of this, we prefer to use Odin's horn, Thor's horn, and Frey's horn for our toasts, which is a type of sumbel attested to in our records. Odin's horn honors the ancestors and deeds of the past, Thor's horn the present and the folk today, and Frey's horn looks towards the future in our descendants. This is a way for us to honor all who have been, are, and shall be in the chain of our existence.
In feasting we find joy among friends. Hail to Heimdall's children. Noble deities dancing in the sky shine down as we share in kind.
May our clans be kept strong in our union.
May our clans be kept strong in our union.
Devoted are we to you.
Devoted are we to you.
Devoted are we to folk.
Devoted are we to folk.
As sun's rays beam forth.
As sun's rays beam forth.
Devoted are we to our ways.
Devoted are we to our ways.
We raise the horn to mighty Har, who grants his gracious gifts, and hail to those of hallowed kin who live in lands beyond. We raise the horn to heroic Thor, friend to the men of Midgard. All hail the great that are gathered here, the folk who stand before us. We raise the horn to regal Frey, for fertile the fields shall be. We hail to him for hallowed bonds that produce progeny and peace.
So then the time comes to bring things to conclusion. This is done through the Enda. The Gadi provides a closure, a way to prepare the folk to return back to the mundane world, yet strengthened by the spiritual powers that were encountered.
We have welcomed your weird on the way, pay tribute to mighty Tivar. May it walk in the many of our right, and the wheel that we have forged.
Hail the gods.
Hail the gods.
Hail the goddesses.
Hail the goddesses.
Hail the folk.
Hail the folk.
From Midgard we hail.
From Midgard we hail.
To the worlds beyond.
To the worlds beyond.
Hail to those who have heard us.
Hail to those who have heard us.
We have already mentioned the use of sacred verse in our bloats, and have seen their usage within the performance of the rite itself. The fact that such verse forms are utilized is well attested in our lore. The Prosed itself was written as a guidebook on how to develop them. Then consider the Ynglinga Saga, chapters 6 and 7, which tell us that Odin speaks everything in verse, and that the gods themselves are described as those who brought poetry to Midgard. They are given the names Lodasmiths and Galdrasmiths, relating to the two most sacred meters of our faith. These are called Ljodahatter and Galdralag. Here we will discuss how to construct these two verses so that you can use this as a model for your own rites. Ljodahatter, the sacred song meter, is especially noted as the verse form of prayer. The famous Hail to Dag from Sigdrifamal is written in this meter. Also keep in mind that the runes are sometimes called Fimbuljods, the great songs, which is related to the Ljod in Ljodahatter. Indeed, we recognize the validity of this verse, but we need to know how to construct it so that we can embrace this tradition within the modern era. To create your own Ljodahatter verse, you must first understand a bit on how a poetic strophe or stanza is constructed. In this case, we will be utilizing a 6-line strophe consisting of 2 half-strophes. A half-strophe is one half of a strophe that has the same structure as the other half. In other words, it will have the same alliteration and syllables as the half that follows or precedes it. In the Ljodahatter, the first 2 lines of the half-strophe are alliterated with one another. Then the 3rd line alliterates within itself. Let's look to the Sigdrifamal prayer as an example. Hail Dagger's sons, hail Not and Nipt. In the first 2 lines, Dagger is repeated, but this is considered a proper alliteration. So line 1 and line 2 alliterate with one another. In the 3rd line, Not and Nipt alliterate. So in this line, the alliteration is within itself. Then we pay attention to the syllables of each line. The first 2 lines of the Ljodahatter meter are from 3 to 6 syllables, and the 3rd is from 4 to 8 syllables. As in the above example, the first line, Hail Dagger, is 3 syllables, the second, Hail Dagger's sons, is 4, then the 3rd line, Hail Not and Nipt, is also 4 syllables. After this, a second half-strophe is developed following the same rules, which will give you a full Ljodahatter strophe. Here is the Sigdrifamal stanza and its entire English translation to give you an idea on what to base this on. Hail Dagger's sons, hail Not and Nipt, look down upon us with loving eyes, and give success to the sitting. Galdralag means the Galdr meter, relating to the Galdr chant we have discussed previously. This usually relates to the runic chants recognized within our ceremonies, but originally signified any type of religious intonation. The notion of chanting typically signifies a group of people resonating sacred sounds or words in order to connect to one another and their divinities. Galdralag is the meter of holy Odinic chant, and as such becomes the focal point for the gathered to join in the conversation with the divine. The composition of Galdralag is similar to that of Ljodahatter, and indeed it is considered a variant of it. It is made up of 6 lines with similar syllabic structures. However, instead of 2 half-strophes, Galdralag is made up of 3 couplets, each made up of 3 to 6 syllables and each alliterating with the other, then utilizing repetition or refrain to accentuate the chant. This is often done by repeating the final 2 lines of the strophe, but variants of this rule are accepted. Here is an example of this from the Blot performed. O noble gods and loving goddesses, Hallowed is a light, Hallowed is alive, pure in its brightness, pure against darkness. Note the use of repetition and alliteration within the structure of this verse. Various descriptions of Galderlag meter have been seen, but the one we review here is best suited for our purposes. However deep you wish to research these concepts to accentuate your rites is a matter of personal choice. The idea is to re-establish our ties with these holy forms of language that were such a vital part of our ancestors' religious experience. Now you have been shown the basic paradigm for performing a blot. There is a lot of room for variation. For some, who have been in Asatru or Odinism for many years, some of the specifics may seem strange and new. But, rest assured this has not all just been thought up. It has been meticulously reassembled from the clues left in the lore. Years of research are behind this video. You can learn more about our research via the Norna Society website at www.norna.org. Thank you for watching.